Lawmakers avoided a partial government shutdown this weekend, but drama didn't end there. Georgia Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene filed a resolution to vacate the Speaker's chair.
Again, I don't have a timeline. That will be a rolling issue that we'll be judging and making decisions by. But I assure you, I'm not the only one. I have support on this from others in my conference. I'm not introducing this to throw the House into chaos. Committees will continue doing their work. Investigations will continue.
If that sounds familiar, it's because similar tactics were used to remove then House Speaker Kevin McCarthy last October. Congresswoman Greene is taking some heat. Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullen says it's a lousy idea.
I think this is a huge mistake. I believe this causes dysfunction in the House when it shouldn't be there. Speaker Johnson's doing the best he could.
The move comes at a pivotal time with voters assessing the strength of Republican leadership heading into the 2024 election.
I'm against it. This is not helpful at all in any way, shape, or form. We're in a bad state right now.
Ohio Republican Congressman Brad Wenstrup is chairman of the House Select Subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic.
Where people, instead of being able to persuade others to come along with their ideas and their goals in Congress, they just try to extort the Speaker. And she's not the first, obviously, and we saw the ousting of Kevin McCarthy. So we're in a challenging time if this is going to be the way that people want to operate. You know, normally you come to Congress, you want to be persuasive. There's things you're working towards. If you don't get it all the first time, you try again. If you get 80% of it, you might take it and then keep working on the other 20. No one likes this appropriations process coming into these minibuses or large omnibus bills. Nobody likes that. And so we have got to stop taking down our own bills and voting against the rule on appropriations bills that are conservative and they're coming out of committee. And Kevin McCarthy tried to put people together that are from the two ends of the Republican Party and on the committee so that when they produce a product, you know, we can all go for it, stand behind it. And when you do these things, it weakens the Speaker's hand. I don't like that it comes down to the Speaker. I like better when we pass things out of committee, pass them on the floor, and then go to conference with the Senate. But the bottom line is people have to understand that the American government is right now four-dimensional. You've got the House, you've got the Senate, you have the White House, and you have our agencies that we deal with all the time that are regulating things and putting things out there that we try to pass bills to stop them. And I don't think that's what our founders had in mind. So I'm hoping with this bill being passed and on its way that we can then get into 2025 and do the appropriations process appropriately and get things done on behalf of the American people. What I am against is a shutdown. I was here in 2013. I stood by the shutdown and we paid a heavy price for it.
Congressman, you have some legislative proposals yourself, one being the Educate Act, which is seeking to end diversity, equity, and inclusion teachings in medical schools. Tell us about that proposal and what you hope it can achieve.
Well, as you probably know, we have a doctor's caucus in Congress, and I'm one of the co-chairs, along with Dr. Greg Murphy. And we put this forward because we see what's taking place in our alma maters, in our medical schools, and we're moving people along that don't necessarily have the credentials that we normally expect of someone who gets their medical license. And so you would always get there based on your merit. You certainly want to provide opportunities for people that normally wouldn't have them to get into school and to be prepared to get into school. But this is not good for the trust the American people will want to have in their physicians going forward. You're going to have people questioning whether the person in front of them actually really progressed and is qualified for what they are doing, because these people are being put into a position where they normally might fail, but they're being coddled, and you're changing things from graded to pass fail. And it's a real danger. Not only that, it's the same in residency programs as well. It needs to be based on merit. You know, we fought for 60 years or more in this country to make sure that we were providing equal opportunity for people and that there was no discrimination. DEI is exactly the opposite of that. And it's dangerous when it it comes to your health care, and this is not the place you can be doing this. We don't do it in sports, do we? You have to be there based on your merit. And that's sports. Here we're talking about people's lives.
Another bill you've brought forward and that a bipartisan group in Congress is urging President Biden to implement is the No Surprises Act. How would this bill help the American people?
Well, the No Surprises Act was actually written very well in a way that can help the American people tremendously. What happens a lot of times with patients is they go to the hospital in an emergency situation. Maybe even the hospital is in their network, but this is an emergency surgery, for example, and the doctor that was on call to operate on you is not in network. So you would get this large bill that was an unnegotiated rate because they were out of network. Well, what we wanted to do is remove the anxiety from patients and create a situation where doctors would want to be in network and providers of insurance providers would want to get you in network. Mm-hmm. So we take the patients out of it. We have a 30-day period where the doctor and the insurance company could come to an agreement. And if they don't, there's an arbitration process. The arbitration process we wrote up was very fair. So it would not give and tip a hand to one side or the other. And we wanted to make sure that there was no benchmark like a median in-network rate because the insurance companies can control that. They can remove their high-end providers and drive that down. So we passed a bill that didn't allow that. We made it very clear, bipartisan fashion, out of Ways and Means Committee, across the board, signed by President Trump, and put in place to really help patients through tough times and do something fair for the providers that take call and see patients in these situations. And unfortunately, HHS came out with their ruling and basically said you can use that as a benchmark, and that has thrown the whole system into flux. There's a huge backlog on arbitration. We were trying to get to a position where you avoid arbitration, and we're trying to fix that.
Just this past Friday, Congressman, Russia was hit by a deadly terror attack that left more than 100 people dead. ISIS has claimed responsibility for the attack. What do you make of the situation and the fact that the United States warned Russia?
Well, that is something that the United States has been doing. If we pick up some intelligence that especially are going to harm innocent people in almost any country in the world, we do want to let them know. And so we let them know, and still this happened. And it surprises me that this could happen in a communist country like Russia, almost said Soviet Union, sorry, like Russia, where they have a pretty good idea who everybody is and coming in and out of their country as opposed to our country right now, unfortunately. But and then this is ISIS-K that is claiming responsibility. This is the same group that launched the attack on the United States when we were leaving Afghanistan. And now you see all this posturing. One group is claiming that they did it, and then you have others saying that the Russians are saying this was the Ukrainians. I can understand why they want to say that, to inspire their people to be more angry at the Ukrainians and to try and legitimize, I guess, his work or the war in Ukraine. And I don't think you can legitimize it very well. That's maybe what they're trying to do. And then there's also some that are saying you blame the special forces of Putin. So the accusations are flying across the board, and I think time will tell exactly who did this. But it's always sad when something like this happens. A terrorist attack is a terrorist attack, and they usually occur on innocent people that don't have anything to do with the actions of the government.
Congressman, you lead the House Select Subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic. What do you believe your subcommittee has accomplished, and when can we expect potentially more public hearings?
Yeah, so we are heading into a phase of having more public hearings, actually, because we've had transcribed interviews with Dr. Ralph Barrick, a renowned coronavirologist associated with gain-of-function research. We've had Dr. Fauci, Dr. Collins, Dr. Dazik, who's head of EcoHealth Alliance, who was doing gain-of-function research on American tax dollars in Wuhan, China. And so next we'll be bringing some of these people forward for open hearings. And as we do that, we'll also be releasing the finally approved transcriptions from the interviews that we've had with them. Look, there is so much for the American people to take in with this. One, why are we even doing gain of function research? And that's where I am right now, because I believe if you want to try and do it to predict the next pandemic, you can probably do that through AI and not actually create a more infectious virus. There was so much obfuscation by China. It's certainly a cover-up. They sent me a letter right away saying it's a grave mistake for me to even proceed with this process. And we know what kind of programs they have in Wuhan, and their bioweapons program is certainly a part of it. They've written about it. So a lot of things pointing to something going awry in China for sure. We may never have all the answers because they're not cooperating. And that's a problem. But in our interview with Dr. Fauci, he never looked at those talking about how it could have come from the lab, never looked at that science. And in our interview, I suggested he might want to look at that. But he did say during his hearing now that it's not a conspiracy theory to say it came from the lab. But what did we endure for well over a year or 2 years that anybody who said something like that, they were being disregarded and canceled, et cetera. So we made a lot of gains in the things that people probably want to know about. And as you look at the agencies now, when it comes to origins of COVID, the DOE, FBI, CIA, ODNI, they all lean towards lab leak theory.
The chairman of the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic, Congressman Brad Wenstrup, thank you so much for your time, sir. Have a great week.
You too, Mike. Take care.
To the Fox News Rundown.